Teresa, I apologize. I do not have our sponsors right in front of me.
I do. With us today, we have our progress sponsors, ABS CPAs. They're located here in Pickerington. We've got Ruff and Associates CPAs, and I believe they've got multiple locations. And then we also have our pillar sponsor, Z Promotions, and our presenting sponsor, who we will hear from shortly, and that is Siebert Keck Insurance Partners. And I know they've had a lot of things going on, and Mark will share a little update. But I'll also, welcome everyone and thank you all for being here and participating in our last 3 weeks. And the best part about today is it's snowing outside and you don't have to leave. You don't have to travel anywhere. You can do this event sitting in your office or at home. So, and then when it's done, if you have to travel far to get back home, you should just call it a day because you're done. So that's how we roll. All right, what else? Travis, Rick, what else do you guys want to share?
Rick, you're up.
I just would want to, first off, thanks to Travis and Teresa for putting these programs together in our final third week. And, we've seen so many things change through this last year. And, one of the things that I think we've learned the most is that we need to lean on each other. We need to look to our support organizations like the Chambers of Commerce and Convention Visitors Bureau, the downtown associations, and individuals like Cultivate and places that are here to help. And every business is struggling, in different ways. Maybe your business is doing well financially, but it's hard to balance employees going back and forth to homeschooling and quarantining and those types of different things, or making safety protocols in your business. Not one business across this country has not been impacted this year. And I'm looking really forward to today's presentations, but I just applaud the community for leaning on each other and leading on our organizations. And, things look brighter moving forward here with vaccines. And I can't wait until, next few months as things start to lighten up a little bit and business can start getting back to somewhat normal. So thank you.
We hope to see that as well, for sure. And I know everybody's excited about the vaccines being here, and reading the numbers of how many have been in Ohio so far. It just is going to continue to increase. So I know that's exciting for a lot of people. So I think we'll get started, unless Travis, you have anything else? All right. So with us today, we have we have some great speakers today, first of all. Second of all, I want to thank Mark McTigg with Siebert Keck Insurance Partners for joining us as our presenting sponsor, and give him the opportunity to kind of share a little bit about his business. And then he's going to introduce our speakers. And Mark, you can introduce them both at the same time. And then we're going to, Matt is going to be up first, but you can go ahead and introduce them both, and you can take it away whenever you're ready.
All right, thanks, Teresa. When the agency was considering sponsoring this Economic Outlook series, it only made sense for us to sponsor the recovery, adaptation, and innovation topics, since Siebert Keck is in the recovery business. We help our clients recover from everything from fires, injury, lawsuits, employee theft, you name it. And in order to continue providing the services that our clients demand, we've had to do a ton of adapting and innovating over the last 10 months. But here's the commercial part of the introduction. Wanted to use this opportunity to let our communities know that Pat Reed and his team of professionals at the Insurance Circle in Canal Winchester have merged their offices and operations with Siebert Keck Insurance Partners. And that was done November 1st of this year. We're very excited about that, to open up another office in this territory. That will be our 17th location in Ohio, in addition to our Florida office and our third agency here in Central Ohio. And everybody's the same, all the professionals that our clients are used to working with. Nobody's leaving, everybody's the same. Pat's leading the operation. And basically it just means they have more company options, access to our value add service, our in-house claim staff, concierge personal services, employee benefits, a lot of things that Sieber Keck now brings to the table for the insurance circle. And in 2020, even in a pandemic year, we had some good news. We were named to both top 100 independent agencies in the United States in both size and top 100 insurance workplaces in the US. So anybody can sell, but to know that we have happy people serving our clients, that's the most important thing. Insurance Circle has been in Canal for over 30 years, and Sieber Keck was founded in 1910. Sometimes I think I've been here since then, but just 28 years. Ton of experience between us, and so we provide a lot of local service and knowledge with basically the capabilities and firepower of a national brokerage. And selfishly, I've always wanted an agency in the Pickerington Canal area. That's where I live. And we're excited about being a much larger presence in Fairfield County and being able to offer exclusive programs that we have that other agencies don't have around here. So whether it's a complex middle market commercial account, group medical benefits, professional liability, or just a couple of houses or a couple of cars in a house, you know, we'll figure it out for you. So into the commercial, onto the speakers, the more important part. Matt Yurkis, Cultivate Pickerington. Matt's the founder of Cultivate, providing coaching and workspace for startups. Matt started a range of successful endeavors with a passion of helping cultivate business startups that include several web-based products. His expertise is particularly geared towards digital asset management, rich media files, e-learning, enterprise-level sales, business planning, cash projections, developing software business requirements, and project management. Second speaker is Andrew Boyd, Blue Label Packaging Company. Andrew is president of the Blue Label Packaging Company located in Lancaster. Blue Label is a manufacturer of custom labels and packaging, primarily serving the craft beer, spirits, and wine industries. And Andrew studied at The Ohio State University Fisher College of Business and currently resides in Columbus. So Matt, I will give it up to you. Have fun.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. I'm just gonna spotlight my video if that's okay. That will make this a little bigger for you. So can everybody see me okay? I'll go ahead and get started here. So I did commute into work this morning. So I'm here in Pickerington, just right across the street from Teresa, and it looks like Christmas out here with the Pickerington Christmas tree and all the snow falling. It's actually pretty nice. So just going to jump right in here today. So we're talking about adapting, recovering, and innovating. And so, you know, like the introduction said, I'm Matt Yurkis. I started Cultivate in 2016. And I'm just gonna jump right in. So, you know, we all know that there are these distortions right now to our economy. So we have these winners and losers. So we have these negative distortions, things like shutdowns and travel restrictions, working from home. You know, really kind of changed our economy in many negative ways. And we have these positive distortions too. So we have a stimulus, we have low interest rates, also working from home. So for some businesses, working from home has been positive, and some it's been a negative. But you know, we're really all challenged right now, as Rick said before. You know, every business has been impacted, and you know, I've been able to meet with over 200 small businesses this year. And, you know, we all know the statistics on business failure. You know, many businesses fail within the first handful of years. And as entrepreneurs and business owners, you know, we're challenged to, you know, adapt and innovate. But really, as we're thinking through the different ideas that we have as entrepreneurs to move our businesses forward, those same things that might cause a business to fail are the same things that are going to be a challenge for our ideas, you know, to succeed. So all these same things, like not investigating the market, not having enough financing or cash, even growing too fast, you know, not having your personal finances in order. These same things are a challenge to existing businesses as they are to startups. And so I'm going to kind of take a look at some of those things today and kind of provide a framework that I hope will be helpful as we recover, adapt, and innovate. So just kind of kicking things off, you know, we really are in a position as small businesses, especially, that everything we do moving into 2021, we have to plan and execute perfectly. So if we're going to be successful at the things we're trying to do to adapt to our customers and for our business, we really don't have we don't really have many chances for a do-over, right? So we've got to really plan and execute perfectly. So that's why we have to really think things through so much before we kind of jump into big changes for our business. We have to be very savvy entrepreneurs, and more than anything, we have to really keep an eye on focus on how do we grow our revenue. So, you know, how does our adapting, recovering, and innovating kind of zero in on that particular problem that most businesses have? So we've got, you know, a lot of challenges and headwinds that we face to do these things. So we have staff absences, supply chain disruptions, usually an inability to meet, at least in person, with customers. And we have new and hungry competitors, you know, so because so many businesses are challenging to grow right now, you know, there could be new types of competitors that are coming out of the woodwork. So when we're looking at recovery, you know, there's tax implications for us as business owners. We have, maybe we didn't have a great income this year, and that would obviously have tax implications for us, or depending on how things shake out with some of the PPP money, that could have tax implications. Or if we have been struggling for cash during 2021, maybe a lot of small business owners haven't really set aside or sent in quarterly tax estimates, so they'll be challenged. Really comes down to the health, the business health, the cash position of a business, and how well we budget for profitability moving into 2021. So for our innovation, you know, we're challenged to think of ways to build customer trust and show value, and to improve and communicate our unique value proposition. And I'll jump into that a little more in a minute. But for most of us, the shortest path to growth is going to involve somehow finding ways to upsell, cross-sell, and get repeat and referral business from our existing customers. That's usually the shortest path to growth. So there's some low-hanging fruit there as we think about it. So despite all of these headwinds, you know, I just want to, more than anything this morning, I just want to be an encouragement, you know, to all the businesses that are on this call. You know, we really have a bright future, and it can be very challenging, especially if you're a small business owner or you have a very small team. It can be very challenging to just really kind of adopt like a positive view of the world, especially if your business is suffering. You know, you have all these challenges with staff and things like that. So we just got to really figure out ways to explore fresh ideas with our customers, with our vendors, with our team, and put ourselves in a situation where we can really, where our creativity can flourish. So, you know, for me and for most people, this comes when we have new experiences, when we're engaging with new people, and even having like some periods of rest, you know, and refreshment, you know. So we just have to kind of set ourselves up for the right conditions, I think, sometimes for some of these things to flourish. So I'm not going to really do a whole commercial here for Cultivate, but I want to just explain kind of what we do and how we work. Looks like we've got a number of people on the Zoom, and maybe you haven't heard about us. So we launched our Cultivate Pickerington here in earlier this year, and we've had huge support from the city, the county, and the chamber here. But really, there's four things that we kind of have adopted into our methodology, and this is how we help our members. Basically, we're a nonprofit. So the first thing we do is every month we have these in-person business lessons and networking opportunities. So we do that here at Cultivate Pickerington, usually the first week of the month. We have, for our members, we have a tool where we can give them a business dashboard to see if some of the things they're doing for their innovation and reaching new customers are working, and provide advising support for those members. We have a co-working and business incubator space here as well. So we have desks, offices, meeting rooms, things like that to help those that need some type of access to their facility. And we have been building all these online business lessons, including a whole set of tools and resources and videos for what we call Launch Track, which really will follow very similar to what I'm going through today, but with other kinds of resources like cash projection tools, some other tools that I'll just briefly touch on today, but those are all free to pretty much anybody on this call has the ability to sign up for a free membership for Cultivate, cultivateworks.org. So we could give you those things. So as we're thinking about this, what we like to do is really start with these three questions. Anytime we're thinking of a new business or a new business idea that we're trying to kind of launch to reach new customers or grow our business. So we really start with these three questions. The first, and my presentation today is really going to be digging deeper into these three questions and giving people a framework for how to really kind of measure and evaluate some of these ideas before we jump into actually executing them. So the first question, is this a business or idea that you should start? The emphasis is really on the opportunity. Second question, is this a business or idea that you should start? And the particular emphasis here is really thinking of you personally and your capabilities and your skills and talents and those of your team. And then the third question, is this a business or idea that you should start now? And there's both business and personal considerations that we're going to explore for how you might want to do that. So the general idea here is we have these 8 things that I'm going to just briefly go through to kind of help provide us with a framework for brainstorming strong business ideas. And the idea is, as we have an idea to innovate or adapt or start a new business or a new business idea, we can kind of consider it with these 8 points in mind that I'm going to step through, and we can use this as a tool to decide which of these ideas that we want to pursue, to kind of filter out the strongest of our ideas and put our focus and effort into those ideas. So we're going to just kind of touch through these 8 points. So in the context of those 3 questions that I asked. So the first question was, is this a business you should start? So for that, there's like 4 areas that we look at. The first is your product. Do you have a product or service that people will want to buy? And there's some sort of validation for that. The second is, how much capital do you need to start this business or idea and to see it through to where it can be successful? The third is, do you have a team that can do everything needed to succeed? And the fourth is figuring out, how are you going to grow this business? Like, what is the strategy and who's going to actually do this piece of it, which is so critical. So as we think about those 4 things, the first area within our product, we have to really kind of come down to our customers. So when we're thinking about our customers, what is the problem that our customers face? How do they currently solve this problem? How does this product or service or idea that we have, how does it solve it? Next is, what is your unique value proposition? So your unique value proposition, it's much more than like your elevator pitch. It's really going to drive like all of your messaging and your strategy around how you're going to kind of take this to market and be successful. It's a clear statement in line with your market's challenges and desires, communicating the unique contribution your company, product, and services provide to your market that's different from your competitors. So one of the things that we have a tool of in our launch track course is some tools to really kind of develop your unique value proposition around this idea or business that you have. And then the third thing when we're thinking about our customers is, what is your call to action? What is that first step that customers are going to take to begin go down this journey with you to become a customer? What is that first thing that you're asking them to do? Second kind of area of this when we're thinking about our product and validating this idea or product is how unique and exclusive is your product? We may have something that is very different, very novel, that no one has ever done before. Those ideas are obviously much more risky. There's more that needs to be done to validate those kinds of ideas compared to something that is already exists and is already in the marketplace. So it can often be a shorter path to success by doing something that is already established in the marketplace, if you can still be unique and exclusive, have some area that makes you special. So it really comes down to knowing who your top competitors are. And your top competitors may not necessarily be who you think, the obvious ones, the other businesses that are doing a very similar thing. There could be other ways that people are solving that problem that are actually your competitor. So we would encourage you to put together a competitive feature metrics, kind of list out all those different ways people are solving that problem, sort of the features and benefits of each of those. The second kind of core area we have to consider, especially in times where if your business is contracting or cash is tight, is your capital. So do you have a cash projection that really kind of forecasts all of the cash inflows and cash outflows for your business? Creating a cash projection like this is really essential, and it's going to help you to make better decisions as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. So again, we have tools like this that are free, part of our course, that we can help you with to develop a budget, develop a cash projection. But really, you should not take this jump to launch this new innovative idea, unless you really kind of lay out what your cash position is going to look like into 2021. So if you have enough runway to be successful. When it comes to your cash inflows, obviously you're looking at how much money is it going to take to start this business or to launch this new idea. When is your cash depleted? Where are you going to get this money? And when do you project that your customer revenue is going to, from this new business or idea, is going to actually begin to add to your cash position? When we're thinking about our cash outflows and measuring these ideas that we have, what are your costs? Lots of different kinds of costs that we have for these. And super important is, what is it going to cost you to acquire a new customer for this new idea or line of business that you're thinking of launching? That is something that a lot of business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs don't necessarily kind of really factor into their projection, is how much it's going to cost to acquire a customer. And it can be pretty tricky to determine, but a lot of businesses might reinvest 30% of their revenue to win new customers. And whatever that is, your projection has to reflect that. And then, obviously kind of figure out what your break-even point is. So this third area that you'll need to kind of evaluate to see if this is a business that you should start as you're kind of thinking through the opportunity is your team. Do you have a team that can do everything that's needed for this to succeed? What are the positions that are going to need to be the roles, to be successful? Who are these people going to be? How are they suited to do these important roles? And what kind of skin in the game do they have? I see a number of businesses that are thinking of using like subcontractors, maybe to execute parts of their business. And those subcontractors may not necessarily have a lot of skin in the game. So I just have to really kind of think about, who's on your actual team. And then what are the relevant skills, talents, and experience you have for this idea? Do you need additional knowledge, training, or credentials to even do this business? And what's that going to look like? And then the fourth area, as we think about, is this a business that you should start, is your growth strategy. So what is the business model? What is the sales model? What is this strategy you're going to have to get new customers? And ultimately, it comes down to, how are you going to build trust with customers? So from there, kind of jump into this second question: is this a business that you should start? And as we think about that, and we're kind of weighing these ideas that we have, we're going to kind of zero in on these four facets: our capacity, skills, credentials, and experience. So you could be really strong in one of these areas, but that doesn't necessarily make you a great business person. We see this a lot, where someone could be a fantastic cook or have some other great skill, a craftsperson, but it doesn't necessarily going to make them a great business person. On the flip side, you don't necessarily need to be a finance or accounting expert to be a successful entrepreneur, but we still have to kind of cover these bases. So as we kind of dig into this, kind of start with our skills. Do you have the skills to produce this product or service? Do you have the skills to sell this product or service? And do you have the skills really to manage all aspects of this business? So kind of need to do an honest self-evaluation for these ideas that we have. For our experience, do you have experience providing this type of product or service? Do you have experience, selling to this customer segment? And do you have experience, going through this sales channel with this type of cost structure? you know, the greater your experience, obviously, in this area, you know, the better your odds are going to be for success. Third is your credentials. Again, I talk about food-based businesses sometimes because about 10% of the businesses that I meet with are somehow involved in food. And people will come in with an idea to start a food-based product business or a restaurant or a food truck. And like they maybe don't even have like the licenses that they're going to need, you know, to be able to do that. So just really thinking about any kind of licenses, certifications, degrees, reputation. You know, we meet with a lot of folks that are trying to be a business coach or a consultant. And if you don't have a strong professional reputation in that area, it's going to be really hard for you to kind of launch off a business in that category. And then our capacity. So, you know, everything takes resources to execute. So we have these physical resource restrictions that we might have. Are we going to need a facility, a vehicle, some piece of equipment? Is there intellectual property that we have to get lined up? Maybe we have to get some things copyrighted or patented before we can really launch off into that idea. Do we have the human resources? Is there literally enough time in the day to execute this? And do we have the financial capacity, both as a business and us personally, to launch this? So this is it. This is like kind of my third question. It's my last slide. Is this a business that you should start now? You know, so the idea is you have these 8 different things that I went through very quickly, but you know, your product capital team, growth strategy, skills, credentials, capacity, and experience, whatever your business idea is, you know, we want to look at it from these 8 different perspectives, from, you know, with these 8 different kind of sets of questions, and then use that as a way to weigh multiple ideas. So as entrepreneurs, especially if you're a small business owner, I mean, you can literally do just about anything you want with your business. You know, you can take it in any direction that you want, but we have to stay focused. We have to, you know, plan this in a way so we can execute this perfectly heading into 2021. So I feel like these 8 things are really a good place to start as you're kind of weighing all the different ideas and options that you have so that you can really be best set up for success. So that's pretty much my kind of where I'm at with the presentation. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have. And take it from there.
Can everyone tell that we have a tech guy on here who knows how to navigate his way through Zoom probably better than any of us? Thank you, Matt. Rick, I think you unmuted. Do you have a question?
I do. So, you know, Matt, one of the things that we have from the county standpoint is a revolving loan fund, and we actually received a good fund in response to COVID, where we can do 0% loans to local businesses to help them get through, you know, this tough time. What are some things that you would suggest for businesses that, you know, they've got, you know, let's say you're a restaurant and you've got 4 months where, you know, it's probably going to be pretty tough until hopefully things start to, you know, come out better on the other end, and we're able to, you know, hopefully get back to regular dining and those types of things. You know, I hear from a lot of businesses that just say, I really the winter, I'm really nervous about it. What are some ideas, like thoughts on how they can look at their books, what they could do to try to sustain and get through this tough patch? We did not plan this. I'm putting them on the spot here.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great question because, you know, it really, as a business, you know, not all small business owners are great business people. And, you know, this is a time when we have to really be a savvy business person, you know, if if our business is going to survive, you know, into when, you know, things are kind of back to normal. So, you know, the best first step is to create a real budget and a real cash projection for 2021. And, I meet with many small businesses, and very few of them have a budget. And I can probably count on one hand the number of businesses I've met with in the last few years that have a month-to-month cash projection, like forecast for their business. And this is such a critical tool. How would you know if borrowing, $20,000 from, the loan fund is even gonna get you through it, so it's the only way you can really sit down and answer the hard questions of, what can we actually afford to do to, with our staff, with our rent, with all these things. Getting a loan would be a way to, obviously add to your cash position so you can kind of weather this storm, but you're also taking on additional debt that, I would be hesitant. I would tell a business not to take a loan if they didn't have that forecasted out in a way that they knew that it was they'd come out on the other end, with the best information that they have, so we see small businesses that, basically rack up, credit card, tens of thousands of dollars of credit card debt, and they're getting like title loans on their cars and doing a home equity line against their house. And, you don't really want to, that debt is yours, whether your business is successful or not. And so really using those kinds of tools, is something that we help people with at Cultivate, but that's really where it starts, I think, to be a good business person, is to start with those kinds of forecasting tools. Really just know if you have enough, runway, and then you can use that to juggle, about a dozen different cash inflows and cash outflows for your business to figure out if you can even, if it's even workable.
Any additional questions for Matt? Quiet group.
And I just put out while we're waiting, if there's another question. So cultivateworks.org is our website. Any business in Fairfield County can kind of join us and get access to the resources that we have. But we have basically I wouldn't really call this a course, but we have a video with a cash projection, a budgeting spreadsheet template that you can watch and kind of use to kind of go through, making that type of budget and forecast for your business. And the video also kind of goes through about a dozen things you can do as a small business owner, particularly to adjust your cash inflows and cash outflows. So you have, some idea of if, what this is going to look like for you for 2021. And then we're available to meet one-on-one with people as well. And, to kind of help you, with some of the nuances of that and think through some of those decisions. And that's all free. That's something that we do here as a nonprofit, thanks to the support we get from the city, the chamber, and the county.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Any other questions? Tony?
Teresa, real quick. So this is Tony Howard, director of the Pickerington Library, Matt, and we have technology trainers. I know Teresa and I talked about this quite a bit. We have technology trainers available for any business or anybody in the community that wants to use them. But my hopes are that we can connect and work together to further provide resources for the businesses that are using you, with our librarians and our technology trainers. So hopefully we can connect soon and discuss what that looks like a little further.
Great.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tony. We are going to jump into a company that is near and dear to my heart, and that's just because they employ my husband. So, But, you know, we do actually plan these events strategically, and we ask certain people to participate and be our speakers for reasons. And we know that in talking with our business communities, what some of their challenges are. And, you know, the reason why we ask Matt to share what he has is, you know, he's going to be able to help you with that idea and take that idea from start to finish. You're an existing business, but you have an idea. You've seen what happened in, you know, the beginning of 2020 and when the pandemic hit, and how your business had to change and innovate, and what can you do? But is this idea going to be viable going forward, or is this just a filler for the time being? And we have resources in this community, and that's part of the reason why we do this, and ask, you know, organizations like Cultivate and Matt to come on and speak. But then we also look at businesses who are doing things well and who are doing things successfully. And we want to hear their stories, and we want to know how they're doing it, and how they are innovating, and how maybe some of their ideas can trickle down into other businesses within the community. And so I know Mark already introduced Andrew, but quick question, Andrew, do you want me to show the slide that you sent me, or is that just your notes?
I'll fire it up because I'll probably like kind of scroll down through it as I'm.
All right,
as
well,
I'm
let
working.
me, I have to make you a co-host real quick.
Oh, fantastic.
And that is done. So you are good to go. But we have Andrew Boyd, who's with Blue Label Packaging. And again, near and dear to my heart, but also I get to hear the behind the scenes and what's going on. So that's, you know, part of the reason why we reach out. So Andrew, we're going to turn it over to you and let you run the show.
So as you're saying, you know, it's been just a super chill, fun year for us. It is not at all. Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, Mark, excellent job. Thank you. And Travis, Travis, Rick, Teresa, thanks for having me. So without further ado, I'm going to dig right into this. One moment here, because I am a Teams person, so I don't always use Zoom, so I'm not that familiar. And Mark, I just said Matt. Matt, I just said Mark. That's totally my bad. Sorry about that. Okay, let me figure out, guys, I know this sounds bad, but where's share? Share screen on Zoom. Oh no. I'm like the professor that doesn't know how to work the AV equipment.
All right, well, let me pull it up for you. I got it ready to roll.
Oh yeah, share screen, it's right here. Okay, cool. All righty, so okay, cool. Oh yeah, that's great. All righty, so I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about, I wouldn't, to say anyone's an expert or we know where this is going or we know what's going to happen is definitely not accurate. But I do, as all my loved ones and friends know, I actually love to talk about this kind of process of responding to COVID because it's been really interesting to me as a business person, not always in a fun way, but just because it's been such a unique challenge, extremely different from anything I was, went to school for, or basically I trained for in, business school. It's just not something that comes up. So I'm going to just kind of go through what's happened with us, and feel free to ask questions along the way too, because a lot of them, a lot of things I still don't have good answers for. So anyway, let me go ahead and get started. So first and foremost, we're a Blue Label Packaging Company. We're out here on the east side of Lancaster. We're as mentioned in the intro, we produce custom packaging for like breweries, distilleries, wineries, etc. So our customers are like people like Brewdog, Double Edge in Lancaster, Wolf's Ridge in Columbus, Seventh Son, but those breweries all across the US. So basically the breweries that you're familiar with, we do a lot of their labels and packaging. So that's kind of our business. We were formerly known as One Right. A lot of people are more familiar with our former name and former company. We used to produce church offering envelopes and have a call center that employed a lot of people in high school. And then we basically transitioned fully into packaging starting 2012 to this point, which has become our main business. So that's just a little background to kind of explain the size of company we are and what we're doing. As I'm going through this response, it makes a little bit more sense. So it's a family business. I became president in 2017. Before that, I had just run our labeling business, as it was just a division at that point. And currently we have about 120 employees at one location, 1/3 of which are administrative. The other 2/3 are in production. So they're actually running equipment. So that, again, that's kind of just relevant to why this response was a little bit difficult at some points. So, like most of you, I kind of all through January into February was watching the news with increasing alarm about what the future might hold for, all of us personally, I think we're concerned at that point and still are to some degree. But then the implications for the business started to dawn on me probably in February, especially when you started hearing tales about, in Europe about what manufacturers were having to do and full shutdowns and kind of supply shortages and things that started to sound pretty, unlike anything that we dealt with in our lifetime, more like something you would see on the History Channel for like World War II or something. So I would say that first and foremost, the most important asset that I've had through this entire process is a chicken little attitude of I approach every day, and not just in the pandemic, always with a sense of nervous anxiety that something terrible is going to happen. And I think that's pretty valuable when something bad actually is happening, though in your personal life, it's not actually a great attribute and it just stresses out, again, your loved ones and friends. But with that growing tempo of we're going to have to do something, I had been thinking about, really starting in February, thinking about, all right, how is this going to work? Is the government going to tell us what we have to do? Our private employers going to have to take things into their own hands, which, as it turns out, the degree to which that was true was, I don't think anyone could have expected that. But just generally thinking about trying to understand how this virus worked and what precautions were going to best prepare us. So, the first step that I think you were hearing about everywhere, the news was quick to pick up on the fact that work from home was going to be a big part of basically getting people away from each other, because it's like any transmissible disease, like you just want people apart. So the first thing that we had been thinking about was work from home. Luckily for us, we had begun a work from home we'd begun work from home kind of studies earlier that winter, just knowing that we wanted to move some of our admin people. Essentially, some people in a printing facility are just processing artwork all the time, and that can be somewhat tedious. So one of the perks of that job is it can be done at any point in the day. So we were trying to kind of introduce a program of, you can work through it at your own pace, basically, as for that specific department. Well, the research we were doing there was pretty helpful because we'd already had a little bit of a hint as to how we might start work from home. So I think I was looking through my notes yesterday. Around March 15th, we shut the building down to visitors, stopped all of our work travel, and basically sent as many people as we could get home, which at that point, I think we were able to send maybe 25 people home. And I think we had around 90 total employees at that point. So it was a pretty large percentage. In hindsight, there was a large degree of, fear at that point, kind of, that I don't want to say overreacting, but we probably sent more people home than we realistically actually could. We found out a little while later because some processes weren't really that well designed at that point, but we erred on the side of caution, tried to get as many people, safely out of the facility as possible. As mentioned, about 2/3 of our facility are production employees. So we basically had to institute in-depth cleaning policies. Luckily, a lot of those pieces of equipment, an individual operator runs them. So they're not you don't have operators working side by side. We instituted social distancing. And I had kind of forgotten that initially there was about a month and a half where there was no face covering mandate, but there was work from home. So I was talking about it with one of the other managers yesterday, and I was I had forgotten that there was a period where we were in coronavirus, but people weren't wearing face masks in here. He's yeah, that was a couple. I was that seems like that was 10 years ago. But anyway, so at that point, I mean, once we had our work from home policy in place, and at that point, I think largely the governor had put together a lot of the coronavirus resources that we're now used to. So we were able to look to that as policies continue to come out. And we've seen, though still not perfect, a lot better distribution system for updates coming through the Ohio Department of Health, usually driven by the CDC. But as we learned with the quarantine guidelines, they don't always immediately become effective. So there's a little bit of a time delay sometimes. Anyway, in that initial response, by the end of May, our platform looked a lot like it does now, which is face masks, temperature scanning at the door, no visitors, no travel. Because of most of the work we do is B2B, and we serve the entire United States. We don't have a lot of customers coming in anyway, so that part actually has, I hate to say it's actually been a little bit more convenient to not have people coming in for press checks, but that's a little bit the truth. So, but it hasn't really been a huge factor. And most of our marketing was already done on the internet. So it did affect our trade show season, as it did for everybody who relies on trade show and in-person sales, because our entire trade show season was basically canceled. So our travel guideline didn't really come into effect too much because we had nowhere to go. And then, as we all probably remember here, the very confusing essential business period of the pandemic, when we all got to figure out who might be considered essential, and that we all maybe were wondering if there was going to be, we'd be providing letters to police officers. I don't know. In hindsight, some of the projects we prepared for obviously seem ridiculous in hindsight, but at the time there are actual letters that exist that I guess distinguish our employees as essential business employees and that sort of thing. So anyway, with all this stuff, we've always tried to err on the side of caution. My approach from the very beginning was, at some point this will be over, and I would always like to be able to, thinking back and telling the story, say that I had tried to go the extra mile to always cover, just err on the side of caution. And I think in doing so, that meant we were usually a step ahead of what was in place. And also I had a pretty good relationship with my lawyer, who I met playing kickball years ago. So we are good friends outside of work also. So I was able to kind of get updates of hey, what have you seen larger companies, how are they responding to this? And could kind of get some guidance on what the bigger companies in Columbus and some of those large corporations are doing, because I found through this whole process, and just in the news too, if you read the policies of Fortune 500 companies, they usually give pretty good guidance on okay, that seems like a pretty good guideline for how we should be handling it too. So any questions on initial stuff? I mean, we're past it now, so it seems like obviously that's what we did, but as I think for everybody here, it's a lot more clear now than it was at the time. And even just making these notes, I'm like, man, that was such an unpleasant time. It's still not great, but I think you guys know what I'm saying as business owners. So from a business standpoint, as a manufacturer, and I don't know, I mean, I think that's pretty universal. We started seeing the toilet paper effect, as maybe it'll be called in textbooks someday. But it's also known as the bullwhip effect in supply chain management, but basically just a run on supply chains, mainly plastic films and common papers for us, because we're making labels. That's primarily what we're using. A lot of that stuff, some of it's used in PPE, some of it's used in medical supplies. Overall, consumer goods in general. I mean, if you remember initially the grocery store, almost not just the staples, but almost everything was depleted, because almost everybody's inventory is, just in time fulfillment. So as we saw packaging overall, more people moving to point of sale, moving away from a lot of the wholesale industrial food supplies that we're all used to. Restaurants and hotels are buying things in a lot larger bulk. So now everything's being sold at an individual retail level, which drives a lot more units of packaging. And I could also talk about this all day, but I won't because it's pretty dry. But generally, there's also a lot of articles about there's an aluminum can shortage right now. So next year they project about 10 to 12% overall shortage of aluminum cans, which makes it harder for these struggling breweries because that's how they are garnering most of their revenue right now, is selling things in cans. So what we learned is we had relied for a long time on the fact that most of our supplies we can get on demand. That was no longer the case. So we had just completed a warehouse in February of 2020. That warehouse was immediately filled with safety stocks of products that for years we've been able to rely on a 2-day turnaround. Our suppliers have a warehouse, we can get it whenever we need. We saw those lead times jumping to months. So it really changed our whole paradigm of how we looked at our inventory. And now we have very significant safety stocks of almost everything we carry. Just something I didn't see that going backward, as we had set this whole business up, but that's been the case. A lot of our customers, because the majority of our customers are breweries, also distilleries and wineries, were immediately struggling. For most breweries, taproom sales are a lot of their revenue. So they kind of had to quickly pivot to trying to get everything canned and sold that they could. There were initially, if you remember, because the hand sanitizer shortage was pretty severe, a lot of distilleries moved to hand sanitizer production. They've since moved away from that for a number of reasons. I don't know how much tequila smelling hand sanitizer you guys have in your offices, but we had some here and it was like, maybe let's get it back to Purell whenever we get the stock back. I think everyone was in agreement there. So some breweries moved to canned water when we had shortages. And we also saw a lot of charitable projects going on. A big one we were involved in was called All Together, where basically breweries all across the United States brewed a beer where the proceeds went directly to service employees who were out of work, which is a huge problem in that industry, continues to be to this date. In many ways worse now than it was at that point this summer, because there's no stimulus and there's no, without outdoor dining, a lot of those tap rooms are really struggling. Considering we serve breweries all across the United States, it was quite interesting as well, because depending on what the lockdown orders and, regulations were in individual states, you could see a real difference. And, unfortunately, it's not a pleasant reality. It's just a reality, is that some states determine printers to be non-essential. And so the breweries that remained open in those states had to go find other suppliers. I mean, as you guys have seen, it's just been kind of a mess because of the varied way that it was responded to. Overall for us, we saw demand increase in the first few months. Not something that I would have expected, especially considering we'd done our worst case scenario financial planning. That trend hasn't gone away, which is, I guess, pretty logical when you consider, what else are people going to do with a 9-month quarantine than drink beer in their houses? But at the time, it was pretty shocking to see how much of this volume was moving to packaged beer and beverage sales. And it continues to. So we kind of found ourselves pretty quickly in the fortunate position of having to increase capacity in the middle of a pandemic. And a lot of this was pretty early on. So vendors weren't able to travel. We needed new equipment in the facility, but a lot of the equipment manufacturers were shut down because some of them were in the UK, some of them are in Israel, and they have differing levels of manufacturing shutdowns. So there was no equipment available. Service technicians aren't able to travel. I guess I am, but the laundry list of small inconveniences and confusing parts of how to navigate goes on and on, because again, it's such a patchwork depending on who you're dealing with and where, and what company might have what policy of who you can get in-house. Going through a construction process in this environment's been pretty difficult as well, because now you have vendors in your facility who have to adhere to your policies and you want to document that. Anyway, so that was kind of our initial challenge, and it actually continues to be to this day, is just keeping up with basically the demand for beer labels in a pandemic, which I don't really see that trailing off until this is kind of over. So then kind of on to continued efforts. The summer of 2020, which Who would have known in hindsight? We look back on that fondly, but better days, basically. We briefly brought back a lot of our entire staff for exactly 3 weeks before we saw the increase in cases in July and moved back to emergency work from home, which we're still on to this day. We were able to basically continue to improve our technology in the background of all this, mainly hardware. So we moved everyone from desktops to laptops. We moved from remote desktop to VPN, which is a lot safer way to do that. So as opposed to, we've all heard now the horror stories of remote desktops being hacked because it's just a lot easier way to get into somebody's network and onto their PC. So we basically have a lot more solid work from home setup for the long term than we did at that point. And most importantly, at the end of July, we finally put together a 15-page COVID-19 preparedness and response plan, which is a comprehensive document that kind of covers all the aspects of how we clean up the facility for a COVID positive person, how we, what the testing protocols are, what managers' duty is with their employees, and on and on. So that's been pretty helpful. And then we basically did a training with all the managers on that policy, because as you guys have, as everybody has seen, at one point it seemed like from week to week the rules were different, even though a lot of them actually weren't changing. So when we were able to put together our own policy plan, prepare our managers that these are the guidelines you need to worry about, not what you're hearing on the news or what the dispatch has told you is like, DeWine mentions this might be in the next few weeks. And it's like, that's what usually drives a lot of people's response, especially for manufacturers. The guidelines that we were following have pretty much been unchanged overall since like June. So it was good to have that training, get everyone internally on the same page, especially considering kind of what happened next. And then, we basically started to see, over the course of the summer, we started to see a lot more insolvency, late payments, customers going bankrupt. That's just the unfortunate reality that, especially for, I think a lot of the hospitality industry, which the brewing industry looks a lot like with its kind of robust taproom business. It's just been an extremely tough time. So we're basically working on an individual basis to provide packaging for free where we can and pay it back at a future date whenever things return to normal, doing whatever we can to assist, because it's, a pretty bleak picture, especially because going into 2020, a lot of people in general, but a lot of breweries are pretty heavily leveraged and we're growing pretty rapidly. So the total slamming on the brakes was not really great for even successful breweries, obviously. So on to present day, basically, like probably most of you, we've seen a lot more instances of COVID positive individuals in our facility, employees exposed to COVID positive people. That's a almost daily occurrence at this point, not someone with it literally, but someone who's been exposed to somebody. So luckily, sticking to that plan, making sure everyone's familiar with those guidelines has come up a lot more. Even in June or July, when we developed this, it kind of seemed like, okay, we'll have some limited examples of this as this continues. I don't think the human resources staff or myself was probably expecting the degree that it kind of got to in terms of, I think Matt mentioned earlier about people dealing with, short staffs or people not being able to be in the office or kind of just the challenges this presents. And it definitely gives you a lot more appreciation for like a late season NFL team or like a playoff run or something where you are playing with a pretty depleted bench, because that's really what a lot of weeks look like, is you're trying to flex people over from team to team. And even that I don't think is as severe. Our size has kind of let it, it makes it more manageable than even a year ago when we were a lot smaller. Most teams are a team of one person or someone performing multiple critical functions. So especially if they can't be in, that's a real, or God forbid, are not able to work because of they're ill, your whole operation can really suffer from that. So I would say there's not as much uncertainty at this phase, I wouldn't say, but in terms of the stress level, it's changed, and it's definitely I think for everybody, it's a lot more real at this phase than it was at the beginning. And then the final, the hopefully final stage will be, which we're in the beginning phases of working on a vaccine policy. We have no guidelines about when that might happen or when that'll actually be taking place, but we're starting the process of looking at, all right, as an employer, what's our role in this? What can we expect out of employees? We're self-insured also. And I think as, maybe for other people to have health insurance, the diagnostic part of coronavirus is covered. The treatment part is not covered. So, we also have an interest as a self-insured company that we want to make sure as many people are getting that as possible. You kind of hear mixed reports about how many people are planning on getting it. So we shall see what the role of business in vaccination will be, but I think it'll be a pretty interesting debate. That's for sure. So just a couple quick bullet points here at the end. The lasting effects. I was talking to a friend at the beginning of coronavirus, and I was like, if you guys remember, there's a lot more articles about all the positive effects of coronavirus. He was pretty adamant that people will want to forget about this when it's over and move on. And I was like, I think, we'll all have learned that work from home and collaboration and that to really value the connections. And he's like, I've come around to his point of view that I think for the most part, we're just going to want to move on from this. But it definitely did push some trends that were already happening forward a lot faster. I think work from home, a lot more was written about that earlier on before people were forced to do it for a year. It seemed a lot more attractive when it was going to be a couple months. But I think everybody has realized we can be more flexible than we thought we could be. So that's been, I think, a very important understanding. And for manufacturers, especially, who a lot of whom self-included are stuck in their ways of who has to be there, how much people have to be there, how much we can even move manufacturing schedules around to accommodate staffing stuff. We can make things move a lot more than we thought. And I think that works great for families. It works great for people's individual development, for people going through stuff. So that's been that's been cool to see. And work from home in general is a useful tool. I think that's pretty much universal. We've introduced paid sick leave next year. So I think the FFCRA leave actually was kind of eye-opening for me in that if you have a way for people to be covered financially to go figure out if they're sick or not, that's a benefit to the entire organization and definitely that person. So, many people already had sick leave in place before this, but I think for us, this was kind of the catalyst to pull the trigger on a policy just to make sure people can focus on their health first, not have to worry about, conserving a certain amount of their PTO for doctor's visits, and they can kind of proactively make sure they're keeping the facility safe, keeping themselves safe. It finally pushed everyone into Teams and an instant messaging service. So most companies, we were kind of email only and phones or in-person meetings. We're really heavily using Teams and virtual meetings for almost everything. I hope that doesn't go away because it saves everybody a ton of time. I mean, how nice is it where you didn't have to go show up for a meeting 15 minutes early, wait for people to slowly come in? I mean, the meeting's over, you're immediately back to your next task. I think that's great. And for small collaborative stuff, that it's great to keep track of projects that involve a full team. And then, I've read a lot about the ongoing trend of moving things unfortunately, a lot of retail, how to put this, a lot more things are moving online. I've even seen the grocery market, which was one of kind of the holdouts in terms of people were resistant to do online grocery. That's jumped from 9 to 19% over the course of coronavirus. And some of that will return a little bit more to normal, but they're expecting a lot of that will be permanent. For our industry, that has a huge impact on packaging because a lot of traditional packaging exists for point of sale, basically to optimize at the store presence. You're walking down an aisle, you see a good piece of packaging. The kind of interesting new paradigm is most packaging will only need to be optimized for shipping because that's the only time you're going to see it is when it arrives at your house. So it has some environmental benefits, but it's actually a huge shift in terms of what it takes to be a premium brand and how you kind of talk about yourself. So, and I think a lot of that e-commerce, I'll put it, Amazon and UPS and FedEx, a lot of the gains that they've made, I think are probably somewhat permanent, but that's just my opinion. We'll see what actually happens. Okay, that's a lot of information. I don't have a great presentation style. I am very just facts heavy on things. So, but any questions? I mean, yeah, I usually am, feel free to hit me up, over a phone call too, because I am better conversationally about this stuff.
I have a quick question. As you guys are shifted to like work from home, did you have any challenges with like rural employees that maybe didn't have great internet access, and how'd you handle that?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because we're like right here on the corner of Hocking and Perry, which have, a lot less broadband than Fairfield does. So what we've had to do is essentially kind of move some people to because every department usually has one or two, I don't know, designated people who stay in here and like manage the physical parts of the job, like pulling samples or manage job jackets. So those people primarily have taken on the essential part of their team. So they're kind of the designated stay in the office person of their team. But yeah, that we've seen that be a real challenge. And I mean, I think like everybody, probably in Fairfield County, for the online learning, I mean, that's been really difficult for a lot of families also because their access to broadband is not good.
Hey, Andrew, it's Rick. Quick question on, actually, I don't know why I say quick question. None of my questions are quick. You guys had to adapt. I mean, you were a legacy company, that went from church envelopes to beer bottles, which really is a natural progression as we think about it. But, I'm assuming you going through that change made it easier for you guys to change on the fly through, the pandemic. What are some things as a company to take a kind of a legacy company like you guys were, and what were some cultural things that you did to become more adaptive?
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned my own nervous anxiety about all things, but really what that comes down to is realizing that the competitive landscape and being a printer is helpful for that because it is such a crowded space. I mean, I think there's 3,000 people that do what we do in the US. So I kind of carry that message a lot that if we can't adapt, that someone else will figure it out. And I mean, like this year more than ever, the whole like, well, this is the way we've done things is like, well, that's not, we're not in the environment where we used to do things. So we have to adjust how we're doing things. And I think that because we've changed so many other things, a lot of the changes this year have been easier, but also like selling the whole case of, I mean, like probably like most of you, I mean, we had a lot of issues with face covering stuff at the beginning, just because of the murky like news environment. And the line that we had there is like, hey, I don't really care about like what your personal opinions are on this. Like we have a facility that we're trying to keep safe. And like, we've been able to create what we've created here because of our trust in each other. And so it's like, this is something that we've decided is for the good of the company and we're doing it together. And that's what essentially we did with most of these changes is it's about the greater good of what we're trying to achieve. Not to get too into the weeds, but we're a profit sharing company. So like we're all bonused out based on how well the overall company performs. But we go back to that idea a lot about like, hey, this is about all of us working together. And especially in an emergency, it's like there's not really, I don't want to say time, but it's like all valid complaints, all valid ideas, absolutely. But like, the need for all of us to move and adapt is greater than, basically, I wouldn't say an individual's feelings about it, but it's kind of just the stuff is what it is. So yeah, but there's been a lot of adapting. And I guess what my dad always used to say is like, he would use the burning platform analogy, but like where you were doesn't exist anymore. So you have to move to something else. And that's kind of been the way that I approach it too, is like, we're not in the reality where we weren't wearing face coverings at work. We're not in the reality where you can come in when you feel like it and you stay at home when you want. Like that's not what keeps this place safe. So that's been kind of how we've addressed it. I see I have a question here. This is from David. Okay. Yeah. So the question is, did I see an increase or decrease in production from the people that worked at home? At first, I thought productivity increased because like, and we can measure a lot in terms of, and it was great because we actually had a side-by-side of lines entered, or like a lot of people are entering orders or producing pieces of artwork. So you have a lot of great data. I would say that it's balanced out to be about the same. I think that the longer it's gone on, and especially with like, you know, kids being at home, the prolonged distractions like that I think that it's become quite stressful for the people who are in a way stuck at home. So like we, at one point in the fall, had like a rotation program where people were able to come in, which it seemed like when they had a little bit more balance, they were able to refresh, reorganize their work from home. But those prolonged months of work from home continuously, I think it actually does hurt productivity, not because people aren't working. I just think it's hard to go out to be on an island that long without a lot of the resources in terms of training, all the informal conversations that go on in a workplace where you're picking up new skills. You know, yeah, it's a mixed bag, I would say, but definitely like being forced to work from home is not the way that you'd want to have it done. And I really do believe that for any work from home strategy to be successful, I think it's got to be a mix of it depends on your culture and what the task is, but I think you want people still engaging with the rest of the facility, coming back in for training workshops and being able to kind of catch up on the new developments, especially in a growing company. For the people who have been working from home for 9 months, I think it's been a struggle. I mean, talking to them individually, they're ready to be back, and you can kind of hear some of the exhaustion setting in. So.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for sharing and letting everyone into a little bit of the Blue Label history and things that are going on and how you've adapted. I mean, even from the very beginning, and like I said, I'm a little biased because my husband works there, but it's been amazing to hear the stories and, you know, see the progression of how you've adapted from the very beginning to where you guys are today, and also what you see, you know, for the future of the organization and for the industry. So we're going to jump real quick, and obviously if you have more questions, throw those in the chat. But, you know, part of this is we want to engage with our audience here, and also hear a little bit from one of our sponsors. And so with us, we have Zuline Adams, who is the owner of Z Promotions. And, you know, again, we do these things strategically, and we ask businesses to sponsor things or be a part of things because we know that they have a story to tell. And being in the business that Zuline is in, adaptation, you know, recovery and innovation are going to be top on her list. So Zuline, share with us a little bit about who you are and what Z Promotions does, and then how you have shifted your business this year in terms of the pandemic and what you see.
Sure. Thank you, Teresa. So again, my name is Zuline Adams. I'm the CEO of Z Promotions. Our purpose is to get you noticed and make you memorable through creative product branding. And the creative product branding vehicles would be things such as promotional products and corporate apparel. We've been in business for 14 and a half years. And in that time, anyone else who's been in business that long or longer has experienced, you know, similar crises. So one of the significant ones would be the housing crisis that started back in 2008. So this was very similar for us in terms of how we decided to tackle. We knew that we had to remain nimble so we could always readjust our positions. So starting out, it was a little bit similar to what Andrew had said, that we could kind of see some of the things that may happen, that could possibly happen coming down the pipeline, because we were alerted by a lot of the manufacturers that we work with overseas in, you know, China and Hong Kong. So we saw the things that were happening there, and, you know, it gave us a moment of pause and to be able to reassess and honestly, you know, go back to our strategic plan and tweak things. And that's what we continue to do throughout the year. So it wasn't, you know, just one session of tweaking our strategic plan. It was several times over. But we had three main objectives that I feel like that we are accomplishing very well. So number one was to really do what we could, not to furlough our employees, but to retain them. That was very important. The reason it's important, and I know for a lot of people that this is a very difficult concept or something difficult to execute, but we understood what the cost would be on the other side of it if we furloughed our employees and potentially if they found new jobs. We knew how valuable they were, and I recognized the cost to us of having to retrain or train new employees and onboard them. And we may not get the same pool of talent that we currently have. So we knew it was critical to figure out ways how we could go ahead and retain that talent. The second thing was, of course, to find new funding sources. Our industry in particular, not that any other industry wasn't hit just as hard, but for our particular industry with promotional products, I experienced in March, April, and May an 80% reduction in revenue, and that was pretty much average, through our industry. One of the first things that most businesses cut are usually marketing, right? And even sales. So with that, we had experienced that. Thank goodness we were able to anticipate a little bit of that in January and February to help mitigate some of it. But, I knew that I had to immediately start looking for new funding sources. And then the third thing was to actually increase our own marketing. And that seems like a strange concept. And for a lot of people, they don't usually do that because, as I mentioned, they cut the marketing. But we knew that what we had to do is stay top of mind for our clients and even our prospects, because at some point we are going to get out of this. Everything is cyclical, so it's not going to stay in the same position. So we knew that we had to sit there and get the word out about deep promotions and the things that we do, and also the things that we're capable of doing for our clients. So in terms of retaining our employees, some of the things that we did, immediately, we did everything like everyone else. We secured PPP money, so we did that first off. But something else that I wasn't aware of until I had conversations with different business owners, but Ohio has shared work program. And, in the beginning, I'm sure you were like me, every day I would watch the governor's reports and I never heard anything about this. They talked about unemployment. They talked about, looking for federal funding. I had no clue that the state of Ohio had the shared work program. As soon as I heard about that, I applied for it right away. And so for me, innovation comes to the fact that you don't wait for help. You have to create your own opportunities and search for opportunities that are available out there. So thank goodness I did that early on, because when people finally found out that, hey, there is, lo and behold, a shared work program, of course, the unemployment department was inundated with a lot of applications. But since we did that in the beginning, we were able to go ahead and secure funding that way. And what that did was, the state of Ohio helped compensate our employees by paying some of their payroll, and we paid the other portion, and of course kept their benefits going. We also took the EIDL loan. Now, that wasn't something that we really wanted to do, because who wants to take on debt? But when we looked at it, and really actually started talking to community leaders, and one in particular being our leadership in the Pickerington Chamber, had recommended that perhaps we might want to look at securing the EIDL loan, not only just to sit there and have the funds, but using it in a different way by actually investing it. So now it's making money for us. So we're going to be able to pay our loan, but then also have some extra funds, settled back just in case, things go even more awry later down the road, because we don't anticipate that even with the vaccine here, that everything is going to miraculously cure itself business-wise. I really do anticipate that, just from the housing crisis and what we experienced there, we're probably looking at another year, 18 months, even 2 years of, some negative impact from this. So we wanted to make sure that we had a secure foundation. So also, in terms of increasing marketing, what we did was at the very beginning, we started reaching out to our clients and even prospects. How we did that, a lot of people are like, well, obviously, if you're down in revenue, where do you find the money in your budget to be able to market yourself? Everything we did was at no cost. You just have to get a little bit more creative. So we created something called Game Break. Every week we would engage with people out on our social media platform. So we used every social media platform out there, and also our own personal Easy TV channel, which allowed us to have our own TV channel on Roku, Amazon, and Apple. And with that, we played a game, you know, with our clients and prospects for 30 minutes or even an hour. I mean, we did things like conference call bingo, name that tune, and then we would send out prize packs. And of course, the most coveted item in there would be our hand sanitizing wipes. So this was something that really gained traction for us because people started inviting other folks. We never really self-advertised because this was just supposed to be a time to be able to engage with people and, you know, really let our guard down because everybody was very stressed out with everything that's going on. And it's just, let's have a moment to ourselves. So that was one of the things that we were able to do. We also continue to engage with our clients because obviously there was a huge reduction in terms of trade shows. We do a lot of our business with trade shows. So when you don't have that in-person networking and engagement, it was difficult for our clients to figure out, you know, how can they do something to reach out to their target demo. So very early on, you know, we were the ones who searched out different platforms, virtual platforms for our clients to be able to use, and also to show them how they can go ahead and maximize and leverage those virtual platforms. Because just because you're not in person doesn't mean you can't engage. So we started doing kits pretty much straight from the beginning. And, you know, sending out kits prior to virtual events. So it would have items for, you know, them to engage live while, you know, keynote speakers were speaking, or if there were workshops going on. And that was really key. So they could see that there were different ways that they could still get their message across to their members, to their prospects, to their employees. So those are the things that we have done. I mean, we've done quite a few other things as well. And we have things in, you know, that we continue to work on just because we want to make sure that we're set up. By no means are we in a position right now where we're saying, woo-hoo, you know, everything's going great and, you know, we're just so ecstatic. Business has gotten better because our clients have seen from our examples and the things that we have been able to help them out with, that they are able to work in a virtual world. But, you know, we have set we're setting a foundation for that, and we're going to continue to build on that foundation. And that's what I would suggest other folks to do. I do see that there are a couple people who are on this call that I would like to call on, and I'm hoping they can go ahead and share, because I know for one, I'm sure Sally Sutter, so she's with Mermaid Travel. I'm sure your own industry has been impacted severely, right? I can't imagine people are traveling as much as they have in the past. I'd love to know, you know, how you can share some of the things maybe perhaps that you've done in terms of adapting or innovating, and maybe you can share with the group.
Well,
Is that okay, Sally?
Yeah, that's fine. So Zulene, you're right. All of the trips I had planned for people this year were canceled. So I was dealing with refunds for them and rebooking. And I just have to plan for next year. So, you know, I did get the EIDL loan, and I did get the PPP loan. I also got unemployment because I'm, you know, independent contractor and a one-person show, basically. So all of those things actually help me relax. So I know I'll be in business. I can be there for people when they come back to travel, and they do want to travel. They want to travel so bad. But a lot of the trips a lot of the trips I do are motor coach trips. And one of the companies I work with has suspended all of their motor coach trips until there's a vaccine. It's because of the age. I do a lot of senior trips and accessible travel. So I have to be really cognizant of my clientele. If they ask me if it's safe for travel, I can't say, oh yeah, just go out, just fly anywhere, go anywhere. I have to be very thorough and cautious about their travel aspects. So I'm really not seeing, some of the cruise ships have canceled their longer cruises until November of next year, just to give you some idea. Yeah. But on the other hand, you just can't stop planning. So that's what I've been doing. I've been getting more focused on working on a blog. more social media. So I've taken this time to educate myself, do more of that. So it hasn't been idle time. And of course, what I'm listening to now, it's extremely, extremely helpful.
I'm actually really encouraged that you said that there hasn't been idle time for yourself, because this is something that I've done to look at our priority list as well. So a lot of the things that I pushed down, over the last year or the last few months, I've actually brought more to the surface. So it was, actually, it's kind of a blessing in disguise, because I took the time to do a lot more proposal and grant writing, which did help, fund our business. So that was another way of finding different sources of revenue, because I had to supplement our revenue. I mean, we were down 80% in the beginning of this.
Right.
I'm like, we gotta keep going. I've got to figure this out. So I'm so glad to hear that, you've been doing that as well, because this is the time to educate. And I know for a lot of folks, it's been easy to disengage from a lot of the organizations that you may have been a part of. But I feel like this is actually the time to be even more engaged, because I was basically in the front line, with all of the organizations that I'm a part of. I was able to get access to information probably right away, just because of being highly engaged, because I wanted to know what was out there. I wanted to be the first one to be able to access it, and I wanted to be able to capture as much as I could, because that did help mitigate a lot of the stress, right, that we're going through.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just knowing that you have that money available, that helps you stay in business, and you're going to be there next year.
Absolutely. And you want to be there, because that's the whole point.
Yeah.
You want to be there when your clients are ready to use your services. So.
Absolutely. So yeah, you can't put off things anymore. I mean, there's no excuses, really.
Well, to be respectful of everybody's time, we are approaching that 10:30 mark. So I want to just jump in, and we'll kind of wrap this all up in a nice little bow, and want to say thank you, and also give our, my partners in crime a chance to thank everyone as well. And of course, wish everybody a happy holiday season. But of course, we want to thank our sponsors once again, ABS CPAs, Ruff and Associates, Z Promotions. Thank you, Zeline, for sharing. And also Mark with Siebert Keck Insurance Partners, Mark McTeague and his team. I did hear about the Insurance Circle, which is awesome. Pat and his team take care of us at the Chamber. So we're excited to have you on our team as well, and securing the Chamber. Just for everyone's FYI, this is being recorded. We will have this out later today and available on our YouTube channel. We share this with Rick and Travis so that they can share it with their attendees. And just want to say thank you again to our speakers, Matt and Andrew, for sharing. And Rick and Travis, what else do you want to add? Because I'm done.
Yeah, thanks, Teresa. Oh, sorry, Rick. Thanks, Teresa. And again, thanks to our sponsors again and our speakers today. Very insightful. Just one quick, something I realized throughout this year working with just hundreds of businesses, and I'm sure you did as well, Teresa and Rick. I just want to commend really our members and our businesses in Fairfield County, because the things that I saw were very encouraging. One is that they were very willing to collaborate with one another, and businesses were helping businesses. I also saw our businesses being very generous, helping a lot of great causes throughout the last 9 months, and those businesses that were doing well, gave back to the community quite a bit to help those that weren't doing so well. And finally, I was just really taken back throughout this last 9 months at how resilient our businesses are. They're pretty tough, and they've weathered the storm very well. So I just commend them. I thank them for all their support for our chambers and in our communities, and certainly wish everyone a Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I can't top that, Travis. So, just thank you to everybody. Lots of opportunities. And as I always say, reach out for assistance. We did just receive more masks, disposable masks that Teresa, Travis, and I will have. There we go. Travis has them right now. So if you need masks, reach out to us. If you need anything, honestly, loans, grants, employees, we're securing a virtual career fair platform that we're going to be able to start using next year. So that will be Our first career fair will be February 17th, virtual career fair, and we'll be doing those throughout the year. We can even do them just for your business individually. So there's just so many different things that are changing. And the last thing we want to hear is that a business has struggled and that they didn't know to reach out to help or know who to talk to. If we can't help you, we will find somebody that can. I promise you that. So please reach out to us with anything you need, and have a great holiday.
You too, Rick.
Thank you. Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great holiday season. And here we come, 2021. Let's make it a great year.
Yeah. Yes.